main reason why I don't post my kids.
Yep.
Just because I don't know
What's out there, what happens with
I just
it?
don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to have in the future. My wife was against it too. I'm like, oh, good, because I don't have to like battle it. But yeah,
Yep.
AI is crazy.
Go ahead.
Hi, welcome to StoryHive On Location, Penticton. I'm Robb, and we are live with another incredibly inspiring episode brought to you by TELUS STORYHIVE. Today we're sitting with Levi George, who is an Indigenous artist, a graphic designer, a entrepreneur, and a creative mind who I'm incredibly excited to sit down and dive into his mind and his history and his stories. Levi,
Nice to meet you.
thank you for having me and sitting down with us and letting me pick your brain for a bit, because I've diving into PIB's artists has become the end of the season for Penticton's theme, and there is some magic hiding in here. So let's start off with who you are, where you're from, and how you got into being an artist.
Oh, I've kind of always been an artist. I come from a family of artists. So yeah, it's kind of, I've always, it's like always been like the easiest course in school, the best course. And yeah, I mean, I went to school for it, but I find I wasn't like learning to be an artist. I was like trying to learn how to enhance it. So, it's just kind of what our family, like almost everybody in my family is really good at something. I think my mom is probably the one that's like she can draw. She can definitely outdo most people, but like my auntie does like amazing portraits. She used to. And then my uncle has done like all sorts of metalwork and painting, and then my other uncle did that, and then my uncle Gary does like miniature, like he would paint those little tiny,
Oh wow,
what is it?
like Warhammer.
The army and the little cowboys and Indians. He would
Mhm.
like paint the like shirt and face and so yeah, everybody's got some talent. So yeah.
That's cool. So growing up, being surrounded by art, did you feel that it was kind of like something you had to do? Just follow those footsteps as a creative? Or did it just
Kind
naturally
of.
happen?
Kind of. But when you're a kid, I find you're not really thinking of that. You're just doing what you like, and I was always drawing. So, and I got really good with like realism and like trying to like draw this over here without tracing and getting it as close as possible. So that's kind of or just sketching things. And yeah, I was always really good at it. And then you become like the popular kid in the class in elementary because, I'd be competing with another person who was an artist, and I was usually always like a little bit better than everybody. So it's kind of, it kind of writes you in as what you are. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah.
There's like you said, like we spoke with, I'm not sure how you guys are related, but Clint is extremely talented as well.
Yeah, it's my
And
uncle's son. So was that first cousin?
so first
Yeah.
cousin or second cousin, whatever. But yeah, like to see the family lineage being like just skilled in so many different aspects and avenues. When you started your journey from drawing and then eventually led into other aspects, what has been, I guess, the biggest challenge for you to initially get over, like started with? Because you're stepping into a family that is extremely creative and having to keep, like I said, keep that momentum going as a family to solidify yourself within the family versus within the arts community. How has that been? Because they're all creative.
I don't know. Like a lot of my family members kind of had their little niche, right? I probably followed my auntie for a bit because she would do like pencil portraits and she'd make the hair look like baby hair, and she was very detailed. And my uncle that passed away, he was doing that as well, but kind of had more of like a more unique contrast style, and he really liked like rock and metal, so he always kicked out some pretty cool things. Or he created his own character he would be always drawing. He had this like mouse that was like like he almost basically kind of created his own like Disney comic character. He would just do things like that. So I would grow up watching that, and I don't know, I was always inspired by it, but I didn't really think about it as a kid. I just kind of like did what I liked to do, and everybody kind of had their niche, so no one was really, competing or stepping on each other's toes. So yeah, I don't know.
I kind of love the fact that your family is extremely creative. My family, like, I come from a musician background where everyone plays music, so everyone plays an instrument, and it all stems from our grandma and grandpa who played music together in Holland. And it's to be a part of a family that is very creative and unique.
That's so important.
Right, it is. It defines you as a person, and I think at first it's kind of difficult to solidify where you are in the standing of the family, you know what I mean? But when you finally get to that, hey, this is where I am and this is the art that I create, and they see it and appreciate it, it's kind of like the pat on the back, you know what I mean? They're like, you did it. You made it to the level that you needed to. And I think that that's, like, you see your work, and it's amazing. And that's where it's like, your cousins made his name, your aunts made their name, your uncle made the name, and now you get to make your name, and you're pushing it to a different level because you're transitioning in to the digital, which is it's a never-ending landscape. That's a tough one. And do you find, like, taking Indigenous artwork and putting it digital, does that take anything away from it?
I'm trying not to let it like, I'm very adaptable. I think that's why, like, I'm starting to realize it's probably why I got my name, is it's like probably the most adapted animal in the continent. And I find myself, I'm not so much, oh, I wish I had to do this and that. Like, I'm more of like, how can I adapt? How can I adapt? How can I adapt? And so now lately I've been moving from, like, when I started learning more of our stories and culture, and we don't really have a style. So like, I have this, like, kind of almost like, I feel like I have, like, the heat of the rocks under me of, like, what is our identity? What does it look like? And that's, you know, some days I wish I was, like, part of the Morriso family, or I was, like, West Coast art. It's like I could just take our family style and just craft it better. So it gets challenging, but to try to find that, and, you know, but I've been moving from what I used to do, which was more like realism when I was a kid. I used to just kind of, like, try to make things as real as possible. I've been trying to move and do everything digital, like in vector format, because I'm seeing where things are going, and which is why I took graphic design, because I wanted to learn the Adobe and all those programs, because I just feel like this is probably where things are going to go. And sure enough, like, I have 5 murals, one project that's like 4, and then one that I'm working on that I just finished, and they want it all printed with the machine. You know, they want it wrapped like, you know, Jaffa signs will be printing it on. And I kind of saw that coming, and so when I create, I'm almost always thinking, like, if I can keep my design digital, I can do a bunch of things with it. They'll have the file they need. I don't have to sit there for hours trying to, like, fix the rasterize to the vector. And then also, when I want to pull elements from old projects, like, I've done that a few times where I've made a certain kind of, one project I had, like, pictographs within the background for our 4 food chiefs, and I was like, I spent so much time building those, and, you know, I'm not going to use the art piece because that was like a commission piece, but I'm going to use my own elements and bring them over. So because it's digital, I literally go open the file, grab them, clean them up, bring them over, and then I can do whatever I want. So I just love that, the ability to manipulate, and the speed of it. Like, I find I don't sketch as much on paper anymore, because I just love that I don't have to sit there and spend time erasing and moving this and that on my iPad. I just I'll often use Adobe Fresco, which is trying to imitate watercolor and sketching, and if I can just grab my sketch and blow it up and twist it and move it around, that's what I would have been doing on paper. But paper, it's like, you got to erase it and then you got to try to bring it over to here. We have to move fast in these times, unfortunately. So I'm, like, trying to keep with where things are going, but also you almost have to use the new tools to keep up. And you know, time is money, so it's like I often always overdo my time in a project, which is beneficial to the person getting it, and then my wife's like, you gotta stop doing that. I mean, it works well for the portfolio later, but Any tool I can find that can make things fast is what I'll use. So it's just I'm constantly adapting to it. So the digital aspect, I'm tech savvy. Like I used to repair small electronics, build computers. So like it's the whole like technology aspect is not intimidating to me. So I'm kind of like blending it and, you know, trying to see, will I be competing with AI in a machine?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like so I'm also trying to learn how to use that, but you know, it's hard to use because there's a whole environmental factor to it and there's controversy. So when it first came out, I was like, whoa, I can really, like, this can really help me, especially for photography. Like if I want a fox jumping a certain way, I had one piece where I wanted a fox jumping a certain way in my head. So I was using AI to develop how it was jumping. And then I was telling, okay, I wanted to jump sideways and I wanted to look a certain way. And then I would be just, and in the beginning I was like, oh, this is so cool. But now, you know, it's only been like a few years since then. And now I'm like, do I use AI? Like, is it going to hinder and damage the work now? You know, like, like, so I'm like,
there's a huge stipulation against AI right now.
I just hope maybe one day we get the energy aspect figured out. But even at the same time, how AI uses data is a whole other controversy. So I'm like, yeah, it's hard. And the hard part about AI is it's going to be a part of everything, and there's nothing. I don't think you're going to stop it. It's like the cell phone. So it's that's a whole conversation.
It's Pandora's box. It's
is,
now that it's been released, there's no putting it back in the box, and I think that we have to accept that. And our artists are going to have the hardest time doing that because what we do is from the heart, and you can't replicate that with machinery, no matter how much you program it, how much you can teach it, right? So although I think that's where human art will always stand as like an accomplishment. It doesn't matter how much AI art and AI music gets out there, you can tell the difference. And people will genuinely gravitate towards human created.
In a way, I find it's like it's enhancing. So it's like, because it's so easy and it's there, like for me, it's causing me to look deeper in and be like finding what do I like, what is my own style, what am I pulling out, so that there's a pattern to the work as opposed to just taking, you know what I mean? It almost like makes you want to be more original because you're not, now you're kind of competing with, like, it's like the human spirit and the created, and you know, it's amazing like how complex it is and how our bodies and our minds are so intelligent that we can pick up those tiny, like AI is like throwing like the kitchen sink and we're still like, hey, wait a second.
It drops a little off.
yeah. So we're like, that's good. That's probably going to change, so we won't know. But I find it's kind of like causing me to almost hone in more to myself, so that I'm like, the work I'm doing is true to what I like. It's coming from me and not from the machine.
I think that's one thing that's valid, and like
But I'm also trying to be adaptable too, to where like if somebody, like if I'm doing a mural and it's just pure commission and someone's like, I have the image, I developed it, put it on there, and then I can do that. So I'm like still, because like trying to be a full-time artist is kind of risky. And I'm trying to be able to do anything. I mean, the graphic design helps because there's a lot of mundane work that will always need to be done. If someone's like, I need a brochure, I need this work translated, I need a poster, like those are just endless, and people are starting to push back on like the AI created stuff. So they, you know, so I'm like trying to be of what I kind of will do anything in a sense, because if I stick too much to one thing, it's like I don't want to box myself in and then like be more of a starving artist. So
yeah,
it's that adaptability I'm trying to make available just in case, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You keep bringing up a valid point that I spoke with Winona Paul, and we brought it up in hers, was that you guys are actually the generation who's creating the artwork for our region.
Yeah.
which is like it actually genuinely gives me goosebumps to think about that. Like, you guys are the ones who get to create what is going to be in 100 years known as the Okanagan's Indigenous artwork.
Yeah, it's some big shoes to
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how
fill
does
that.
how does knowing that you guys are the leaders in that reflect what you have to do art-wise? Because you have to you are creating what is yours, but there's almost like this because Haida is so known, and like, you think of Indigenous art and Haida is what you picture. How do you steer from that to create your own style where it doesn't represent?
It's one of the heaviest things that's on my mind all the time, because it's a thing that, like, whatever I do and where it goes gets chosen. It's like the culture and the people choose eventually. Like, I don't think Norval Morso was like, I'm going to be the face of woodland Eastern Anishinaabe art. I don't, I doubt he was like, yeah, I'm going to be the face of it. I'm sure he was just like, I have a unique style and this is what I love to do. And then coastal work, it's like there's a whole historic, they have a whole history of carving. So carving itself is what kind of made that. It's not them being like, hey, let's create a style. It's like the style basically kind of created itself. So in a way, I'm like, if my art's chosen 100 years from now as a style or not, I don't know. For me, I just feel like I just have to focus on learning as much as I can from the information in our culture that we have, because a lot of it's lost, and to try to, like, use the landscape and what's unique here, and go with that. Like, a lot of our artists around in our area will lean a lot to pictographs, which I will use sometimes, but I can't ignore the fact that, like, if you were to go on Google and be like, where is pictograph art found, and it, like, will tell you almost every continent. So I'm like, we can hone into that style, but at the same time, like, there's more pictographs in Manitoba and Ontario condensed. So it's just like, in a way, I'm like, is that a good idea to go in that direction? But I don't go against it either, because, like, Les Lewis, I don't know if you guys had interviewed him, but
we will be in 2 days, actually.
Yeah, so, like, he's created such a unique style with the pictographs, and that's exciting to see. Like, I'm not opposed to it. I now will add it in the artwork, but I do have the thought of, like, long term, and I'm also a very detailed oriented, so the pictograph is, like, to make that what I normally do is challenging. Like, I've sometimes spent time just creating my own pictographs, which I'll often do, but then they start to look more like tattoos because I like the sharp edges and so then I'm like, okay, do I water it down and soften the edges to make it look like, still have that cool look like in a tattoo, or like a piece of, like, almost like a logo style simple art, or do I soften the edges and make it look like a pictograph? So it's a hard one. So I'm actually kind of spending more time just trying to find out what I like, and then blending a lot of the colors of the Okanagan if I can, landmarks, and so I've been kind of following that. So a lot of my work, it's like I'm trying to be as inspired of the area, the territory, and what's around me, like less of what the humans are doing. You know what I mean? So and it's challenging. Your question, that's one thing that's hard. Is sometimes I sit there and I wish it would be really nice that, like, our family did this style of coastal art, and all I have to do is just do better than my uncle or whoever was passing it down, and then I can study our style and then blend with it. Like, that would be nice sometimes. But at the same time, I do get the feeling of, like, I don't know if I want to be boxed into what that is, because I'm a person who likes to do everything. Like, if I could have, like, a studio that had a place for carving, a place for leatherwork, a place for painting, a sculpture, I would do it all. Like, I literally would, I'd be welding the metal, which I do sometimes. I would be painting. I'd be carving, like just stone carving. I would just love to try it. So I'm like, I'm all over the place, and I don't know how to get away from that.
I think that's a wicked thing, though. And
yeah,
like you said, is because you're sitting in a how do I phrase this? The Okanagan stories, because they have been lost and haven't fully been, like, as a non-Indigenous person who was raised in Penticton, I don't know any of the stories. You know what I mean? And I would love to know the history of our region. That is, like, what our region, not like the original stories that are passed down. And that's where I was when we were speaking with Clint, is like, it's almost, because they're oral traditions, it's like it a weird, I want to film them so that they can be passed on, right? Because they're oral, there should be oral traditions and handed down. And I think that you're in the perfect place as an artist who is from here, that is able to express the stories and the traditions and where they come from, because they come from your elders and you hand them down through artwork. I think that is one of the coolest things ever, versus like, oh, anyone could pass down family hair, like history, verbally, but it doesn't resonate as much as if you can see it and physically. Like when I see my family's photos from Indonesia or like from Holland, like that, you connect to that heritage a lot more than just being talked about it. And I think that what you guys are doing, you, Winona, Clint, Les, the leaders of the art movement out of the Okanagan, out of PIB mainly, because there's so much magic hiding in PIB that I want to see it shown. And that's like our main goal right now, is like,
and I appreciate it.
We've done a lot of the artists throughout the Okanagan who are like famous and everybody knows them, but it's like there are these incredibly talented people that nobody knows about because they're hiding in the shadows. And it's like, if we can just shed some light on them to the point where it's like, wow, this is magic, we need to gravitate towards this, there's something there. And that's where I love being able to sit down with creative minds like you and Winona, because even Winona is just like so humble about her skill level. You're extremely humble about your skill level. It's like a lot of artists can come off very egotistical, and I find that none of you guys have. Not one of you. You guys are all so humble, so like true to nature, and just there's something there that I absolutely love about your guys' artwork that's coming off of PIB, because there's tons of it. And that's like, how do we get those stories out, right? And like the way you're doing it is through artwork, the way Clint's doing it is through metalwork, the way Winona's doing it is through paintings and murals. When you're diving into a mural, like a commissioned piece for our building, do you ever get to choose like what elements you get to put in, or do they have, this is what we want, kind of put it on the wall for us?
It's a kind of a mix of both. Like you're saying before, like a lot of the art, to answer that question, but to tie it from before, is a lot of the work I'm doing is tied around the stories. The stories that we have is kind of where the basis of where it's coming from. So if it's for Food Chiefs, is what I'm being asked to do a lot. Like the last one I did for the Penticton Airport, it's the ending of one of our big stories, which is how turtle sets animals free. And it's very similar to like the tortoise and the hare with the eagle. They compete, and the turtle saves everybody. And so the story is a lot of times when I'm trying to base everything from. So I'll have little elements hidden in everything that, like, if you're from the Okanagan and you're from our communities, you'd be like, oh, I know why he put that there. And so that's where a lot of it's coming from. But sometimes I'm being asked to, it's a kind of a blend when it comes to being asked to do something. Sometimes I feel like when I'm being commissioned, I don't always know what their agenda is, but I find like they're like, okay, well, we need to have this. So be like, okay, for Food Chiefs, for example, I'm doing a lot of that because they want that representation in the different buildings and places to help represent like our territory. So sometimes I'm tied to that subject. And lately I've been kind of bridging out to not just have, because it's hard to put 4 different elements together and always include them. So I'm starting to now blend a bit of like they're in there, but I'm telling a different story with it. So it just depends. Sometimes when I have more like I have more say, I'll often try to bring out a story from it, and then I can kind of choose what I want. But lately it's been a lot of the same question of like, can you have that subject in this area. So I'm hoping to not have to do that all the time. But the projects are changing, and yeah, I like when I can kind of choose, because to do the same thing over and over is not always that fun.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there ever like
And I'm
a
changing it a lot too. It'll be like, and it kind of, I'm developing as I go. So it might be funny in the time of being like, oh, the first time I was asked to do that subject, it's like morphed and changed and so that's kind of going on. But yeah, I get a little bit of both, and I don't mind it. I mean, it would be nice to just kind of do my own work completely, but I feel like I need to get to a certain place in my career to where like I get the full say, because I mean I would love to dive in to more of like our stories, but then I would also like to go more into like, you know, political comics, you know, and they just have that image that explains the situation of the time. That's in my mind all the time. So one day I'll be able to take my ideas, because I have just like a long list of ideas I've been collecting for the last like 15 years, that I'm like, this will be good one day. And a lot of it is subject matter that's controversial but important to say. Like, I don't want to always just be doing stuff that looks nice. Like, I would love to blend how our stories are telling some prophecy or the things that are going on right now, or how can I blend an old story and be like, it's actually part of the future and it's going on, or just doing subject matter where it's like you're kind of hitting the nail on the head, but it's hidden. Like, I love when artists will have, you know, entendres, right? When an artist is like, I'm gonna put like 5 entendres mixed into that. I just love that, and I think my favorite artists are the ones that they're so smart. Like, they can just methodically put all of that into there, and then you find a remnants of things later on. So I'm trying to do that in art, and I feel like I'll get there. It really just depends on my success and how well I do later on, because right now I find I'm just kind of doing a lot of what like, it's like what you first said, like, is it what someone else wants you to do, or is it like my own stuff? And I feel like I'm not quite there yet, you know.
I was gonna ask, and it might be because you were bringing up that you have to do controversial things, you'd like to do controversial things.
Yeah.
Does it ever feel, I gotta phrase this properly, does it ever feel wrong being asked to do a commission for like an indigenous piece for like a non-indigenous business, just because they want to have that representation of being connected to?
It just depends. It's
area.
Sensitive, right?
Yeah,
like, there's a reason why you don't know a lot of the stories and you don't know about it. And a part of it is because maybe there's not much interest and it's not out in the open. But like, I find, because of our long history of like famine and losing culture, and, you know, like, there's like population decimation, and then we have residential schools, we have a history of sadness and sorrow, and then you have what little bits of your culture that you have left. I find it's often, we're in a place where everybody's like this, and they don't want to you know, like, we'll share it amongst each other, but sometimes I have to be careful. Like, am I showing too much? Am I showing part of it that shouldn't be shared with everybody? Or, you know, will some elders be like, you know, that's private, you know, like kind of like in ceremony, like you're not allowed to record on certain things, you're not allowed to talk about certain things, and there's this feeling I get of like, we don't want to lose it, and we also don't want too much attention on it, so I have to constantly check myself and check in with the knowledge keepers and be like, is this too much? Can I share this? Is this okay? And so I'm constantly trying to find out what I can do, and I would love to just share it all, but at the same time, there's that level of attention and exploitation that we always have to worry about, and that happens, right? I mean, you have Pharrell Williams on the stage doing native, like, because it's popular, but then at the same time you have like non-native people dressed up in the regalia, and it's not because it's a special thing, a ceremony. It literally is just fashion, and it's like the trend.
I know, that's where I was kind of
I
like
saw-
getting at. Is
I
like,
saw like a photo, it was like TLC, which I love that group. They're like just decked out in like indigenous style clothing, and I think they didn't really know anything about it. It was just like, this is the trend. So that's the worry too, of like as the trend goes up, and as you have like Temu and all these big companies being able to pump out beadwork somehow, and it's imitated. Like I have a friend, her name's Melody Quay. She's gotten really popular on her socials because she does amazing beadwork and like earrings, and she does quill work and quilting, and she's really good. And I watched her little profile go from like 100 to 1,000 to now I think she's like 30,000 followers, and but she actually found Temu was making and imitating her specific, like her earrings. And I was like, first of all, how the heck do you get a machine to bead? And if you don't, is this like sweatshop work where like
we don't know.
like, you know,
Yeah.
who knows, is sitting there like doing the work and then pumping it out real cheap. She literally had some of her work and then the actual
Ad.
yeah. And I was like, that's a fear too. So to answer the question you're first saying is like there's a lot of fear and caution to sharing, because it's kind of like our culture is kind of like a family member who's been through a lot and is could pass any time, and you're like, you want to learn as much from them, but then you cherish them as a person, but you also want to be careful sharing them to anybody else, and it's delicate. So we have a lot of history of sad things, so I find that I have to be aware of that all the time. I would love to just share it and be like, look what we have, like you're saying.
Yeah, because that's one thing.
Sometimes you
brought
get
up a
met
point.
with resistance, and a lot of non-native people will, that I find it always is kind of like striking to them or surprising, of like, wow, you have so much here, but why won't you share it? And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of fear and a lot of history to prove that, why that feeling is there. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to, I find I'm constantly contacting a few elders and some knowledge keepers and be like, is this okay? Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm glad I did that because that wasn't okay. You know?
Yeah, and I think that the understanding that there is a massive respect factor is a genuine thing that people need to understand, because it is not a touchy subject, but it is something that is very delicate towards the community. And that's where it's like, as a person from an outsider's perspective, who is, a lot of my friends and family are Indigenous, so like as a white guy who was raised with natives, I always like joke around like I'm Kevin Costner from Dances with Wolves, right? Like I love the culture so much, and there's just something magical about it. And I think that stems from my Indonesian roots, where my grandma came from like Indonesia, where they're like headhunters, and like they're like a really trippy tribe from there, right? So there's like that connection to the roots that I love about coming from Canada, and being a Canadian is like, we're born right next to this beautiful culture that unfortunately we were never really fully allowed to understand, because prior to our existence there was a lot of stuff that happened. But to see the artwork exploding out of here, and what artwork is coming, it's almost like in 10 years though, you'll be one of the knowledge keepers, because you're learning all these stories. And you're going to be able to be the one who's making the decisions of like, hey, I think we're at a point now where we can let go of that fear to express the knowledge we have, right? And it takes baby steps. And I think that's like the fact that you're willing to not only respect that it needs that, but you're also willing to go and speak with the elders and the knowledge keepers about like, hey, I want to teach this. I want to become one of the teachers, but I want to do it through artwork. I think that the more you're connecting with them and talking, they're going to be a little more like lenient on what they allow you to tell, right?
And the hard part is that as time goes on, the people that ask is dwindling. So there's that too. We're going to get to a point where like some of the last elders are there, and now it's like, how much does the next person who's trying to fill those shoes, like, will they be super lenient, or will they probably more on the lenient side than they would be with the strictness of it. So that will happen, and I might find myself being like, you're totally cool with this, but what would so and so say that's not here? So like, I'm pretty big on trying to keep things to respect that, right? Like, I had some art pieces with our 4 food chiefs. The salmon is one of them, and I was following like and learning what other artists were doing, and also what as being represented. And I find the sockeye, for example, is what was being used in artwork all the time. But in our stories, the sockeye is not the king salmon. It's not the biggest. The Chinook, the spring Chinook, king salmon. It's all the same name, but that's the big one, and that is our chief. But I was seeing like sockeye everywhere. Not that you wouldn't use sockeye, because sometimes it's just beautiful to use it as a piece. But when you're using like the 4 food chiefs, for example, I was noticing that, well, I actually had a younger person that's becoming a knowledge keeper named, it's actually Winona's sister, I think, Anona Campy. She's so knowledgeable. And she had pointed out that like king salmon versus sockeye, which, like, if you know salmon, you're going to be like, one has the green head and the king salmon has the spots in it. It will have green sometimes, but it's not often. And she pointed that out, and I'm like, wait a second. And I'm like, how come I'm the one noticing this? Because like, I'm looking and I'm noticing other artists and stuff in the past. And so I went back and changed. Like, I just redid like 3 different projects I was working on. Had to completely redesign the head, mostly of the salmon on some other projects. I think I changed 3 different art pieces, and it was a lot of work, and that's not being paid for. But I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to bring it up to whoever I can, because there is the cultural aspect, like, that comes from our language and our stories, is doing it right and proper, and not like allowing it to just be changed. I mean, there's a reason. The sad part is there's a reason why the sockeye was chosen, is because we lost our king salmon in all of our rivers. Like, they're bringing it back. Our fisheries is working with like different groups and some of our neighboring nations up along the Columbia and like from here to the ocean to bring back the king salmon. So a sad part is that it's a reflection of like, everybody's doing sockeye because that actually is the only one there's kokanee, but like, that's the prominent one. So it's not like anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just I'm trying to bring back the original part of it, and the cool thing is that we're getting them back because of all that work. So in a way, I'm like trying to bring back that key component. So hopefully any artist coming forward will be like, we got to do that salmon and not this salmon, and you can use that if it's like for its purpose. And at the same time, our waters are starting to get them back. So it's interesting how it's like a reflection of, I'm doing this over here, and that awareness is brought up, and then in our waters we're getting them back. So it's like you're bringing back that chief, in a sense, from the past and from the future and from like the actual environment to art. So in a way, I'm like, this is kind of unique. And so those are the kinds of things that I that's important to me. That's
magical.
Is because there's a influence of English, because English is like the program we're running all on, and it has its influence of like laziness and blending things together, creating new words, not because it's important, but because it's easier to take 2 words and squish them. But our culture, it's like, no, you do it right, and this is how you do it, and that doesn't change, and it's specific, and you need to stay that way. So I find I'm doing that as a practice. So, and I feel good about that, because that's part of the culture. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is trying to bring that in, and it is very like it butts heads with our world today, because our world is like, get it done fast, everything's short term, when cultural, like indigenous knowledge is more thinking farther ahead. So I'm trying to keep that going, and I don't mind doing it, but yeah, it's yeah.
I love that. And you were talking about the piece at the airport. Is that the one with the turtle with the staff?
Yeah.
I love that piece so much. We were talking about it earlier when I looked at it. I was like, I love this piece.
Nice.
And that's like the cool thing is because like we don't know, like growing up in the Okanagan, I don't know any of our local indigenous stories other than obviously the Ogopogo, because that is the only one that we're taught.
Yeah.
But like recently I found out like we have Dogman stories and we have Sasquatch stories as
Yeah.
well, right? Like we have a whole
And
bunch
we have a
of
Sasquatch story that's tied to the Ogopogo and the salmon, and it's like it's
right. Like
yeah.
for me, it's like there are very
That's what I want to do
stories.
is eventually go into that of like kind of like that piece, how it's the ending scene of a movie. I'm hoping it draws interest so that people will go up and read the story there. Like there's a write-up. I was like, can you please put a write-up with it, because I don't want to just have something that everyone's like, oh, I wonder what that is. Cool. So I'm trying. That's the next thing I'm trying to do is to what the permission is of our elders of what we want to share with the story. I want to draw into that so that there's a place to find it, and also it's in the artwork. Like because like you're saying, a lot of people don't know about the stories, and I'm trying to bring that out to where I'm drawing interest to what I did, and then hopefully people will want to learn, like you're saying, and then have a place to access it. You know what I mean? So
That's one thing I
like with that piece is exactly what you're saying is like we don't know the stories, so I created something hopefully that people will be interested in, and then you want to learn more about it, and then you have the story written in like a it's condensed, but it's enough to understand what the scene was up there. Yeah. I'm definitely trying to do that, bridge that gap, because I find to end because I find like racism is like it's like going up and down, and it's influenced by like world politics. It's influenced by policies and government, and if the government does too much of this, and everybody's like hating that, and then also hating the people, and then if it's underrepresented, then what I mean, it's like this. And I'm finding if we can keep the respect of each other, it's like friends. It's like the more you learn about your friend, the more if there is conflict, you're gonna like that's not gonna break your friendship. And I find when we're learning about each other, like that's what I'm trying to do is like if people understand some of our stories or our culture, it's harder for that like those conflicts to breed and to be around, because we're in the age of learning about the comment section. I feel like that's our next thing, is where memes in the comment section is like the new thing we're all like learning to live with. And when you're going through the comment section, to me, I'm always just like, it's so nice that somebody non-native is like, actually here's the breakdown of that, and this is what that means. Or you'll have somebody be like showing respect of like and then you see their effect, and like other people agreeing with that. And I'm like, because you always once in a while have that one comment, and usually it's like a lot of hate, and then it's like you have that one comment in there of like, oh wow, like it's really nice to have first of all the allyship of people speaking out, not just ourselves, but knowledge. And I almost guarantee that person understands and has decided we're going to learn about the people in the area, and then gain some respect out of it, and then next thing you know, they're defending. Not like we're trying to fight with each other, but it is really nice, because I've seen that a few times before, and that's what we need, because it's so easy to get angry over posts and stuff. And I find we're in this age of like rage. Like in the past it was entertainment for the masses of like fulfilling the like I think of like games like our team won, your team lost, and entertainment of like the typical climax story of the hero, and then they win, and then we have this thing that distracts us, but I feel like the next thing that's happening is like the new distraction is rage, is causing anger and conflict. That's the new thing that to distract us. It's not so much the what is that old saying of like flood them with bread and entertainment or something.
Bread and games. This comes from the Romans, from the Colosseum.
So I feel like we're actually, I think, morphing into the new thing, which is emotion in your chair behind the screen. I feel like that's the new control system of like, because in the past it was like distract them with that, and we're already distracted, but now it's like getting to a point where like, let's get emotional to everything like you would in a movie. So now when you like when you watch your 1 to 2 minute reel, it's like it's trying to take what you'd feel in a movie theater from a really good film and condensing it, and I don't think it's necessarily good. So sharing the culture and building that respect, I feel like is the only thing I can think of for the antidote, because if we come to a point where we're all like fighting each other, you know, it's going to be the allyship between two that are going to be the ones that carry forward. And you know, that's a thing I think about all the time, is how do we live amongst each other and get along, but also not be exploited and manipulated. It's like it's a weird future we're going into.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm really excited to dive into sitting down with our local Indigenous.
I mean, like
artists.
What you're doing is the antidote.
Yeah, right, and that's kind of why I'm so excited to sit down with you guys.
Like while I was listening, I'm like, I know Anona and I know Clint, and I watched them, and I'm like, great, because it's nice to learn about people you know. But then I was like, I know Glenn, but I didn't know like his like the background behind his giant paintings in town. I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. And then I learned about the one woman, what is it, Molly the potter.
Yeah.
Like, and so like it's causing me to in their busy worlds learn about like local artists, and then so like I'm building the respect of like vice versa, and I feel like this is the antidote to me to the conflicting future we're going into. And it's just great that long form like podcasting like this is kind of coming back, because for the young people I think like that's their antidote, is like I'm getting tired of the 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute clips. And we've shown, you know, you have some of the giant podcasts in the world, people do enjoy sitting and listening to something for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. So that's, to me, that's the antidote to this. So
I think the one thing we're missing. I appreciate you sitting here. And I think the one thing that is lacking in the world is people sitting and talking.
Yeah.
It is face to face. There's a lot of people just willing to talk online, talk on phone, texting.
Yeah.
You don't get that genuine connection. Like, I grew up knowing who Clint was, but I never spoke to him. Like, I've known him since he owned the tattoo shop, because he was friends with my mom and my uncle. And then to sit down with him and talk and hear how intelligent he is and the way he thinks, and you're just like, from an outsider's perspective, I never would have thought that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just that there's this like weird stipulation of like, especially growing up in Penticton, like you and I know it, nobody behind the camera will understand it unless you're from here, but like there's just a weird clash at that bridge. Yeah. And I hate that.
And some towns more than others.
Yeah, and it's nice to be the ones who
like you go to one small town and you're like, why is there no native art anywhere? It's like, oh, it's because that's that town that's
it still hasn't.
Yeah, and then one town, it's everywhere, and you're like, you know, I find with Penticton we have this. We probably have more of a getting along in a sense because of the West Bench, because the West Bench is this funny area where, like, after the war, a bunch of the veterans got land, and it's on like basically pushed up against the reserve, and then we have the school there, so there's like almost this like. If you're living in that area, you kind of have to get along, and that school is doing a lot of amazing things where they're just kind of allowing the culture to kind of blend in. And you know, the people who don't like it, they'll like homeschool or go somewhere else. But I'm noticing that the families there, because they're like our neighbors, And, when there's a fire, it's so beautiful to look online and be like, somebody in the area is like, hey, you can, if you guys need somewhere to stay, like,
Yeah.
I just love seeing that because there's this respect back and forth. And then if you go up in the areas up there, it's pretty well maintained. People are taking care of, like, because there's a funny area where, like, the property of that whole area buds up and it's kind of surrounded by our territory and our reserve. And then there'll be a sign being like, this, continuing on, this is the Penticton Indian Band. And that normally that in the different areas is like people, respectful people will just not go in there because it's technically private property. But there's this gray area where there's walking trails and everybody goes in. And it's not perfect. We constantly, some of our conservation teams will be like, oh, they're like digging up stuff and creating problems in there. But for the most part, it's clean. And there's this like, almost like unwritten agreement to use the space and to enjoy it. And that all stems from almost like having to be neighbors. Because in town, it's like there's the canal and then it's town and there's little parts. And then maybe if you go up in the hills, it'll start to become the territory. But our boundary, I think it, for our reserve, there's parts over on that side. But that area up there in particular, there's a lot of respect back and forth, and especially through the school, that it's like it's caused because of, it's like if you're forced to be together as a neighbor in a spot, you kind of eventually you're going to get along better than if it's like from far away, right? So that helps. And then when you have an area where there's no reserve there, but it's still, and then it's there's nobody living in that town, in that area that's from the community, then you'll kind of get that like less accepting.
Yeah.
So
in your time as an artist, what has been one of your favorite pieces to do?
The one that I recently did is I did the Ogopogo, and I tried to do it trying to create what I think it would be. So I had to kind of like study a little bit of like snakes and whatever there is of Loch Ness monster, because apparently there's like, sometimes I wonder, is it the same being? Because we have stories where there's tunnels or there's like depths to the Okanagan Lake that's so deep. I don't know if they've like checked all of it. So we have stories of like the Ogopogo not being able to, not just staying here in this small pool, it's like it can go to different parts of the world, like through tunnels and things. I was always told those stories of like, because they have like they talk about that similar being like in different coastlines.
Champlain,
Yeah, you go like very similar, like Bigfoot. It's like not just one area, and so when I did that one, I was like, how can I create what I think would be the Ogopogo? And then I just did it all airbrush, and I got to do realism again, which is something I've kind of I leaned away from. So that one was fun because realism is just so easy for me, and the more time I get to have on it, the better we'll get. And it was like I outdid probably the budget for the time on it, but I had so much fun on it because I took a break from the brush to just do the airbrush, which I really like doing airbrush. And so that one was fun. That's probably one of my favorites because I could go back into that. So yeah, that's been the one that I like recently. And logos, sometimes I'll do a logo and I'll actually like it. And there's a few I've done where there's one I did in particular that I was really proud of. As my cousin's branching off to do like excavating, like big machinery service, and he wanted to have, he's naming it Bighorn Sheep, and I think he's naming it from his son's name, and he wanted to have pictographs into it. So when I developed it, the outer black line is more of the silhouette of a bighorn, kind of stylized to the way I had it, but the inside of it is a pictograph bighorn into it. And so I basically developed the pictograph into it, and it looks really good. So that one is not even realism at all. It's like trying to make something simple look good. And so when I'm successful to do that, because because it's hard to simplify stuff. When people look at like the Apple logo, or they look at the simple things, I don't think they realize that was probably complex and there's so many ideas, but to get it into that simple shape looks easy at the end. In the end, you're like, oh, I could do that. I could do an apple with a bite in it. But then you realize, well, it's like there's some things going on to that logo you don't realize. There's like probably like golden ratio, like circles within circles to create it. If you are successful at it, it becomes attractive, and then people don't know why they're attracted to it. And for me, as an artist, that's the goal, is how can I make this attractive to just the regular eye. And when I'm successful in that, that's usually when I'm happy about. But a lot of times I don't like what I finish. I think most artists are like that.
Yep.
and then sometimes it's like I'm staring at the thing for so long that I no longer know what it looks like as a first impression. I have to almost like be away from it and then come back a year later or months later. So when someone's like, oh, I really like that art piece, I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. Because I'm like, it's kind of like, I always make a joke of like, I'm sure Quasimodo's mother was like, you're so beautiful. But to everyone else, you look like a monster. you stare at a messy room for long enough, it's like, you don't notice it. And then, when your in-laws come by, you're like, oh, now I see what it looks like.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that's my biggest challenge is doing artwork, is losing what it looks like in the end. That wouldn't matter so much if I wasn't doing like commission stuff all the time, but when you're trying to make it look good in the end, sometimes it's not good to stare at something for too long.
No.
Because then you get so used to it, and then you can't see the little adjustments that you would want to do, and you can't wait months to pause and look at it.
No.
So.
Yeah, the same thing with music. You got to let your ears
right. Yeah.
cool down.
Like, you wish you could just like put it down for a few months and then turn it on and be like, oh, that sound was not good there. All right, maybe I should now I can see to add that one symbol or whatever. So.
Yeah, artwork is pardon me, and that's why being a creative, and why I like speaking with creatives, because everyone appreciates what we do, the art that we put out, but no one understands the craziness that happens in here.
Yeah.
And that is where all change has happened in the world. In my eyes, every revolution that's happened has been through art.
Yeah.
Renaissance, the hippie movement is through music, and people like hippies, and every revolution that we've had, literally in the last, we'll go 150 years, has had some form of art attached to it.
Right, yeah.
And maybe besides the wars, I don't think I would classify them into that lump sum, but we're the ones who make change. You can't be. The politicians aren't the ones who do it. It's not the people. It's not the military. It's the creative geniuses who spark that interest that changes people and makes that movement want to push. And I think that you guys are at the perfect time in history right now as Indigenous artists coming from PIB, where the world wants to see this art. And you guys have the ability to give what you want and hold what you want. Like you were saying, where you got to pick and choose which stories are to be told right now and which ones need to be held for later, because like when you're dealing with children, right? You can't tell them the whole truth all the time. Yeah. You gotta be able to
have stories
give
where
them
it's
specific pieces that they can work with.
We have some stories where like, I don't want to tell my kid this, and then we've done that before, where it's like, it is a story for kids, but it had its time then. It was a safety factor that had fear built into it to stop. But at that time, you don't want your kids wandering from the camp at night. But telling that story in 2000, in our modern era, even though there's like a lot of our stories will have multiple meanings built into it. But if at the end of the day, the story scares your little kid, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like we have some stories where some of the characters comes in and just like does some, like 8 other beings, or did something that was like, wow, that was a little explicit or that was inappropriate. We have that built into our stories, and it makes me wonder, was that just open to be a part of everything, and then everybody just kind of accepted it, or were those stories adjusted for the children? Like, who knows? But yeah, sometimes I have to,
Censor yourself almost.
yeah, because the stories can be very raw. And sometimes I ask myself, was it better to just have it raw and then the kids will eventually figure it out? Like it's hard to say because
Or to like water it down a bit for them.
yeah, because when I was at the Naukin Center back, I think it was like 2011 to 16. I think in that area, I was there for a while. I did their artist training program, and then I also came back to get my a certificate. I think it was not a bachelor's, but just before it. When I was there, we're doing some performance art, like storytelling, and I didn't tell the second half of the story because I don't know if I could. I'd have to look at the audience and be like, is it all adults? Like, is it, so I only performed the first part of the story. And then like, when you read what happens afterwards, I'm like, okay, I can't include that. That's kind of random. And that's, so yeah, you have to be careful because all those stories are coming from like a different time period. So it's hard to understand how it was used and if it was used, and so we definitely have to be careful. It's definitely not like Disney where it's kind of tailored for a certain audience, you know what I mean? Yeah.
If you had any advice to give an aspiring artist who wanted to start a career doing what you're doing, what advice would you give them?
I would probably first check to see if you want to do it, because and the reason why I say that is it has to be something you want to do, because it already is hard to be an artist and to make money off of it, especially in the beginning. Like I'm navigating those waters, and like you're gonna have times where it's like, is this even worth it? Is like, this isn't plausible. Like the day job is what I need because I need the money. So it's like, make sure you want to do it, and then if you like are passionate about it, and it's what you think about all the time, you really should do it, because like the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is a core part of that is I've watched aunts and uncles have this amazing talent and just not use it. They get older, they get into their profession, or they just stop picking up the pencil or the paintbrush, and then it's just, to me, it's just like lost talent. And so what I'm doing is basically trying to not waste that and to work on that, right? Like I'm really happy that Clint's doing what he's doing, and in that some of my uncles pursued that further, because it's sad to, if you're a musician or you can sing and you just don't use it. In my mind, I'm like, what are we doing? I understand why, like life's hard, but like don't stop doing it. Like if it's something you want to do, keep filling that cup and keep going for it. And and if you want to pursue it as a full-time thing, like if you like, I would say pursue it and bring your talent and talents out. Lean more towards that than rather than becoming the cog in the machine. Like we're not supposed to be doing that. Like I think we're all supposed to be creating and bringing our unique stuff, and the only way to bring more of that, and the only way to fight the system of like worker bees, is to do the art, right? And so do what you are passionate about, and don't stop, and don't get older and allow it to just fade out, because that does happen, and I've seen that. And and when you go to talk to an older person and what they can do, but you get this sense of like they're probably never going to, that's sad. Same way of like knowledge keeping. It's like, or like that would be my recommendation, is just do it, and start small. Just like I tell my daughter, she's a pretty amazing artist, but she's not doing art that much because she's distracted by what's there. But then when she finally does the art, she's like, this is so therapeutic. And I'm like just tell yourself, do the tricks of things of where like, I'm going to do 10 minutes of cleaning, and then you end up doing 2 hours. But it was the 10 minutes, it was I'm going to do the 1 page, I'm going to write, I'm journaling, and I'm going to when people journal, they're like, I'm going to put something in every single day, no matter what. Or if you go to the gym, like, you're not going to go to the gym off of like how you feel. It's the commitment of like, I'm going to go. So my recommendation is give time for that and do it, because you're so much more than you have something special, but it's up to you to actually develop it and share it, and do that. Don't just become a worker bee, because that's kind of what the controllers of our world would like us to be. And we need to bring out the human in ourselves. So yeah, that's probably the main thing I would say.
I love it. I want to thank you for your time. This has been an
thanks.
incredible interview.
Yeah,
getting to sit
time
down
flies.
and pick your brain and listen to how you see the world is. I love getting to sit down with creatives, because every single person has such a different perspective on how they visually see the world, how they spiritually see the world. And I love artists because they have this ability. I always talk about it because I'm an auditory person. Like, I am a musician. I can create music and melodies that captivate people. But to create something from your brain that is a physical, like, you can see that, hold it, and that to me is mind-blowing. I will never be able to do that. I can't pick up a pen and draw. Like, I'm not that kind of skilled artist. So to be able to pick people's brains who see the world on such a different level always inspires me to just want to go home and pick up something and do something else. So
yeah, because it's all tied to the same nucleus of things. When I listen to a song, I get so dang inspired that I'm like, I want to do. You want to do art, right? And a lot of it's coming from the same place. So it's like when we inspire each other, it's like, if you're following that, you're going to go and do the thing you really want to do, which is really important. I was checking out some music. You got that, your style reminds me of the sound of Chris Webby, which is cool, because he's a...
I used to tour with Snack and Mercules, so we're kind of the same genre style of time.
I'm a big hip-hop head, so my kids will learn that when they're older.
Right.
But yeah,
the dad's slightly got a thug side to him.
Oh yeah, I guess you look at old pictures, you can see the influence.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, Levi, I want to thank you for your time.
Yeah.
It's been an absolutely incredible interview, and if you guys want to see him, where can they find your artwork online?
Right now, I'm kind of sticking more towards the socials. Instagram, Facebook seems to be a little better for, like, if it's it doesn't really matter. Like, I have my contact information. The website is something I was going to try to work towards, but I want to do that right. So I haven't sat down. I have attempted, but I haven't sat down to get that done right. So socials is kind of the main thing. But yeah.
What's your handle on socials?
So you can find it through SynClip everywhere. Luckily that name's not taken because it's not English. So SNK LIP. And if you type it, you'll find it. And I've kind of tested with that. So yeah. And then if you find one social, I try to link them. So if you're going to Instagram, I'll tend to link to the Facebook and TikTok or whatever. I'm trying to play that game of... I really like making montage videos and making of and stuff. And really, that's the core of what you asked me, was if you could recommend. And I make these little videos because I'm really just hoping that young people will see it and go, oh, I could do that. I could, like, that doesn't seem so intimidating when I saw the ugly sketch turn into something, like, that's the whole goal, right? So I like doing that, and I'll keep doing that, try to bring out videography, the blogging kind of skills. So yeah, I try to make it entertaining. So when you go to my socials, it's not off. I'm trying not to just do a still image. Like, you can watch something for a few minutes and play the TikTok game.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If you guys would like to be a guest on the show, there will be a QR code at the bottom of the screen to scan. It'll take you to a form to fill out, and we will be in contact with you. And once again, thank you for your time and your story.
Thanks.
I'm Robb O'Day, and from everyone at TELUS STORYHIVE, I want to thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.